right, welcome to WBPress.org's Gaming with a Purpose podcast. I'm Kimberly Orr, and with me today are Miklos and Starla Fitch of Our Family Plays Games on Facebook.
Yay!
Go check it out. Go check it out.
That's right.
We have an intriguing topic to discuss today. We're going to be discussing how can we use modern tabletop games as a way to connect people across racial and educational divides. So, Mick and Starla, first of all, thank you for being here with us today. And this is our, by the way, very first podcast.
Glad to be on it.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Well, honestly, when I was thinking of who could I ask, your names came to mind first because I'm thinking, man, these are the folks that know where it's at and what's happening in the Houston gaming community. So I wanted to have you guys on first. Having said all that, how do you think board games address things like community building? How do board games help us build community, or could potentially help us build community?
Well, I think the one thing it can do is bring people that you would normally never talk to, because that's the one thing that me and Starla, is faced with all the time in this hobby, because we're the rarity. We're the rare African American couple that's out there that go to a lot of these board game, conventions and things. And
I've never seen another African American couple.
That's true. We haven't seen
all the conventions we've gone to.
True.
I have yet to meet another married couple with children who play games as well.
Yes.
Now I've seen singles.
Yes, we've seen a lot of singles.
So
yes.
I would love to. So if you're out there listening, I would love to meet an African American couple who plays board games.
Yeah,
because we haven't met them yet.
Met them yet.
But we're always out there and we're always playing, and we sit down at the table and we talk. We talk and play with different people.
Right.
Some of the experiences are great, some of them not so great. But we expand our horizons and we talk and conversate and learn new things, and I think that helps.
Well, I'm going to look at it from a different perspective.
Go right
because
ahead.
when you mentioned earlier about, we mentioned to the pastor about playing games, and he said, "Oh, it's for children." He still allowed us. It was at a church picnic, and he announced, "Hey, we're going to have some board gaming in X room," and we had people come in there who had no idea what it was, and we ended up playing code names, and they had the best time ever, and loved it, wanted to go out and buy it the next day. And so it really built a sense of but not familiarity, but we got a chance to know them because we sat there and played together, and they didn't want the gaming to stop. So it was a lot of fun. I think people don't socialize enough, and that game lets you be social.
Yes.
So you go to the church picnic and you're in your little group, and there's little families over here. But we got a chance to break some of those groups up, bring them together across the table with gaming, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I and sometimes the theme helps you talk to people about different things and stuff. Like there's one, Agricola, which is about, feeding your people, growing your medieval farm. That kind of makes you talk a little bit. It makes you communicate, and it's a tough one.
It is.
You got to feed your people all the time. But different things like that, different themes and stuff that you make you conversate and talk to people about things, and it's fun.
How do you think, speaking of theme and artwork either helps with the sort of racial and educational divide, or does it hinder? For instance, I think some games, they don't think about putting diverse characters in the box.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And, or even scantily clad non-diverse figures in the box.
Well, the thing that we see, the one thing we always say in the different podcasts we're in, and we want to thank Stephen Conway of The Spiel that brought us on board that podcast as a contributor. We always say that representation matters, and he was really he really wanted to bring us on so we could really discuss that and talk about diversity in the hobby, because representation matters. And when you look at a lot of these board games, Black folk and people of color just not in
there,
them.
right.
Unless it's something themed like in China or Japan, or you might have an African theme, which some of those don't do very well. But that's the only time you see us. But if you have a game in an urban setting, you might out of 100 white folk, you might get one black person or one Hispanic or one, Asian, so that definitely needs to change.
Well, I really think that board game designers and companies who put out games, you're going to have to think beyond skin color and understand that this world is made of more people of diverse colors. And when we see ourselves in movies or in gaming, we appreciate the thought process, and that makes us a little more devoted to buy your product. When we don't see ourselves, for me, sometimes it can be like, well, you know what? They don't consider me, then they don't consider my money.
Yeah.
So people have to think, what does it hurt you if you've got 9 characters to make one Hispanic or one black or make a female, or, it doesn't hurt you to do that because it's just a character. It's something you made up anyway.
Right.
And it brings that endearment from the people that you represent to your game. So you need to think about that in the future.
And it's really, and it has to keep going because there's a lot of resistance. And I know that there was a professor that I talked to here and there. It's an African American. Well, he's Afro Latino, and he's a professor and he plays board games. Nice guy, William Garcia, and he put on the one of the board game forums talking about representation in games, and he got a lot of pushback from a lot of the Caucasian members there. They were kind of enraged. Why are we talking about this? This shouldn't be on there. We need to move past this. What are we talking about race for? And you guys just don't get it.
Don't get it.
They just don't get it. So we still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I was just about to say, even though I think we've made some progress, and certainly I think the Dice Tower has tried to
they have.
move some things along.
Yes.
There's still that trope out there that board gamers or hobby board gamers are middle-aged, white, geeky males.
And I would have to tell, the board game geek, they need to kind of come along with that too.
Yeah.
Because they're...
I agree.
They're a little bit, one color. So they got to come along.
So you mentioned just a little bit about designers, Starla. How could specifically designers help open up hobby board gaming to more diverse audiences?
Themes, and if it's going to be a theme that and
me just interrupt something. Not always just an urban downtown.
Exactly. Just because you're going to put African Americans in it, it shouldn't be about rap. It shouldn't be about, like say, urban, because we're everywhere in every spectrum. We're in education. We're in the medical fields. We're everywhere. So we just want to be represented. We want to see when you make those characters or when you develop your theme that you've taken into consideration that other people play your games than just white males.
Yeah. Right. Because, there was one, I did a podcast. Well, we did a podcast and we talked about, it was during, I think February during Black History Month. And I mentioned that, one theme is that Tesla versus Edison, they had Madam C.J. Walker in it from an expansion.
Right.
Now, what if you took a lot of those black entrepreneurs and make a game out of that? Because we have a lot of entrepreneurs that we could really put in there.
Inventors.
Because the game, I think the game Steampunk Rally has a couple of African American inventors and a few other people of color inventors in there. How about you just kind of
Start there,
and bring some more on board. Yeah,
we just don't want to see the board gaming history be whitewashed, and male washed. Because we also we're talking about race a lot, but also women. There are a lot of women who love to play board games, and we want to be represented as well.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, there's always more to do. And again, one of the things that we're trying to do with our business is reach audiences that are underserved educationally, and doing that, we're introducing them to hobby board games.
Yes.
So, we're hoping that it's not a back door, it's a side door, I think. Right. To help people see, hey, there's this whole world out here that your family can be involved in. So, Starla, why don't you talk about your Facebook site, speaking of families playing games?
Our family plays games, and I came up with that because our family does play games.
Yes, we do.
And we're such a unique group in this hobby because we have our 14-year-old son, and then we also have a 21-year-old daughter, and we all love playing board games. So we like to see more families play, and we don't see a lot of families. You see a lot of single males. They're there by themselves, playing their games. Where are their wives? Where are their children? We went to Rice Alcon, and there are no real children coming. So our son didn't go. He went the first year. We went, this is our third year?
Third or fourth year.
Fourth year going to Rice Alcon. Right. So we took him the first year. There were no kids there. And so he's like, well, I don't want to go back. So we want to see more families play games. And that's why we said our family plays games, to get other families involved. The educational value, the way it has opened up the mind of our son, who loves video games. And we like to break up his video game play by putting him onto board games.
Right.
He thinks in a totally different way, because video games are so fast paced. You run, shoot, jump. Where board gaming, you have to slow your mind down.
Right.
Yes, you do.
Utilize the thought process and say, okay, I need to strategize. I'm not just running and picking up stuff. I got to figure out how to, get to the point A from point B from point A. So I just love it. And I think more families need to think about playing games with their kids, things that'll help them develop educationally.
Yep. We're also on Instagram too.
There you go.
Yes, Facebook and Instagram. Our family plays games.
Our family plays games. That's awesome. And that's a real concern for modern parents, is how do I get my kids off of the devices?
Yes.
I think most families have sort of lost the let's eat dinner together war.
We have not.
We have not. We have not.
Dinner together every night, 7 days
Starla
a week.
has demanded that we always eat dinner at the dinner table every night.
That's just good.
Yeah,
that's
I
awesome.
don't demand.
You demand.
But we eat dinner every day, 7 days a week.
Right.
Yes.
Unless someone's out of town, we're sitting at that dinner table together, and there are no devices at the table.
Right.
And even though my husband and my son try to break that rule, I have to get on them. We don't put devices at the table. I think the only bad habit we have is watching TV while we eat dinner. But we watch something that the entire family wants to watch. And then after that, we play board games. Not every night, but we do like to get our son off the computer games. And at the table.
At the table.
And then we get a chance to talk and interact. Because
right.
when he's on the computer games, he's interacting with somebody probably in Canada, who knows. But here, he's interacting with his family, and it's really nice to see.
Yes. And I guess that was my point. For families who have not been as successful as you at having dinner at the table every night, board gaming can... do that.
Yes.
It can get the family around the table.
Yeah. And the board game, and it's a lot of board games that they're not hard. There's a lot of games that they can play that are simple. Like Downforce. Downforce is not hard. It's a lot of gateway games, and what we mean by gateway is just games that are not as crazy as some other games out there. They're easy on beginners, and there's a lot of great ones out there. Corkazone and Ticket to Ride.
As far as our son, his favorite and his gateway that he fell in love with was King of Tokyo.
King of Tokyo, absolutely.
It has monsters, it's got dice, and he beats us all the time, and he loves it.
Yes.
And so kids love that. I mean, something with monsters on it, the little pieces. They can pick their monster, who they're going to play as, and he loves that.
Yeah, my granddaughter loves King of Tokyo. She's 5, and she can't play the game fully yet, but she loves to throw those dice.
The dice.
And go after the monsters. So absolutely. That's a great gateway game. So let's talk about some games. So there seem to be sort of a category or set of category of games that sort of lend themselves better to educational learning than others. And first of all, let me say, I'm not talking about, as you well know, but for the listeners, educational games, quote unquote, because the ones that I have seen dealt with, they're really badly designed.
Yes. Most of them are.
Most of them are badly designed. And so why not use what's on the market, again, as also a way to help introduce families and groups of friends to hobby board gaming.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So one of the games that I thought about that really facilitates social bridge building is Pandemic.
Now, that's one that we do not have in our collection.
You do not.
Because Starla does not like
cooperative games. Right.
So that's the one gateway that we do not have in our collection.
Right.
Yeah.
But I thought of it, and we do use it because it does have a diverse cast of characters.
Yes, it does.
It out of the box.
Yes.
And it's not part of the expansion, as you said earlier. And it says we can all work together to save the world.
Yes.
At the bottom of it, right?
Now, there's one that, I really do like that's not so kind of, pandemic is kind of crazy, but there's another one, Dead of Winter.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And out of the box, they do have a lot of diversity in there from some of their characters. But Dead of Winter, you have to work together because zombies are after you. But it's it's a good game, and I like that. Yeah.
And for folks who don't know what that game is, that's a dystopian.
Yes.
Let's survive together.
We gotta survive because, and it's really you have to watch what everybody around you have to do because it's really the zombies is not the main thing. It's kind of like an added on because you have to. It's a traitor mechanic where there's someone in the group that's a traitor trying to destroy everything. Right. And you have to watch them. Yeah. You have to discover that traitor. Yeah.
Speaking of hidden traitor, so one of the games that we've used in a social setting, we did at a university experiment actually just a couple of weeks ago, was to take Werewolf.
Yes.
Which has that hidden traitor mechanic.
Traitor,
you have hidden werewolves and the villagers are all trying to survive another night.
Yes.
And what we found in that social experiment was that people began to other. In other words, people just sort of say, "Oh, I know that person's a werewolf." Yeah. Well, why do you think that person's a werewolf? And they usually have no real basis for it other than I just feel like they are, or they look a certain way, or they act a certain way, and have no idea about who they are or what they're doing. And so we use that to open up a discussion about othering people.
Oh, that's really good.
That's really good.
And so you've played Werewolf, yes?
I've played Werewolf once.
You've played Werewolf once. Yes. Or any other hidden traitor games? What other hidden traitor games do you like? Or have you played?
Dead of Winter is the hidden traitor.
Yeah, that was a really interesting experiment that we did. We found there was a class of 60 young adults, and I just did a demo game up front. And it was a diverse group, all athletes, by the way. They were all athletes from the university. And it was amazing. The people that they picked as werewolves were not.
Yeah.
And we went through that discussion. Why did you think? Well, she smiled. Well, why? Because he had a cap on.
Yeah.
I play. There's another one, Resistance.
Resistance. Yes.
Yeah, that's another one.
Another good hidden traitor game.
Another good hidden traitor game where you really have to you kind of think about what that person is doing and what they're saying and kind of like, wait a minute, I think you're the traitor. You're the traitor because you're saying something wrong. So yeah. So that if you extrapolate that out to real life, how many times do we look at someone and go, well, just because they look that way or act that way, then they've got to be. That's a lot.
That happens all the time, especially in the African American community with the police department. Not that we're traitors, but you looked a certain way and then you end up getting shot. Right. Or you ran a red light and for some reason you're getting shot. Instead of someone saying, "Let me talk to you and figure out what's really going on." They just shoot first, ask questions later. So, we're
or as an African American male that I've faced many times, getting on the elevator and you have, maybe some lady who's, white and kind of like, let me go to the side a little bit, and let me hold my purse a little bit tighter because this African American male, kind of big, got on the elevator. So we see that the other is there,
the othering,
and we see that now in this political climate, with the othering. There's
a lot of othering.
There's a lot of othering in that, like
people making assumptions with no facts.
No facts whatsoever. Fact.
Right. Yeah. And see, we're hoping we can help sort of short circuit that by getting into the schools and with young kids to say, hey, you don't have to label and other. You can learn to accept people where they are and who they are and get to know them as people, as friends. Not make assumptions. So wow. Yeah. We got a long way to go.
One thing I always tell Mick, I say, you got to look at somebody from where they are. You've got to walk in the other person's shoes.
That's good.
And he knows that. I always say, before you start saying this, what about what they're thinking? What do you think they're thinking? What if that were you? And you got to think about that. You can't always just say, well, they should have done this or they should have done that. But what if that were you? Would you have done that, or would you have done something different? And if you take the time to just take that second or that minute to say, well, if that were me, would I have done the same thing? That will make you change your mind. And I always have to take a breath. If I'm upset with someone cuts me off, and when I'm driving, then I got to figure out, well, what are they thinking? Maybe they're on their phone and they just didn't see me. It's not personal sometimes. Sometimes we take things so personal, we internalize it so quickly. Oh, they're trying to hurt me. No, they're not. They've got another whole thing going on, and we have to consider that.
Yeah. And I think games, as you said earlier, can help us slow down. To consider some of those interactions.
To think and strategize. Right. And like I said, okay, if that were me, if he made that move, what if that was me? Would I have made that move? That makes you think. You have to think. People don't use their brain. They don't.
They react rather than respond.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think these modern board games can help us slow down enough to learn to respond and strategize. Exactly. Very good. So I want to end on a controversial note.
Okay.
I know in the pre-show we talked a little bit about there's a game out there by Academic Games called Freedom: The Underground Railroad.
Yes.
It is a historically accurate game, but nonetheless a controversial game. So talk to me a little bit, Mick, about maybe some of that controversy.
Well, Freedom: The Underground Railroad, it does put you in the mind of trying to help slaves come from the South into the North, and through historical issues that might happen through the card play, you're faced with different things that might happen during slavery time and the Civil War and things like that. When you're trying to get your slaves to the North, they're little cubes. You have these little cubes moving across the United States trying to get from the South to the North, and you have these black cubes, which are the slave catchers. And if the slave catchers catch up to the little cubes, the cubes go off the board. Starla and I don't, we don't have this in our collection, and it will never be in our collection because, slavery to us is not a game. Right. It's painful. And when those slave catchers, little black cubes, catch up with the little cubes of the slaves and they go off the board, we know what happens. Those were our ancestors that, were basically killed, maimed, hanged, or whatever, are taken back to, the South. Right. So that's not a game to us. So we have passed on ever buying that game. Now, if some want to buy that who are not of African American descent, or if they're African American that just want to, learn more about their history, that's all well and good. Maybe that can help you. And I've heard from a lot of people that has helped them. There's a great podcast called Shut Up and Sit Down. They really appreciated Freedom Underground Railroad and said that they really saw a lot of stuff that they didn't see before, and they appreciate a lot of things that they didn't know before with that game. And that's great. If that helps you, great. But just with me and Starla, it's painful. Yeah.
No, I can definitely see that.
Well, I can't speak about the game because I haven't looked at it. I haven't wanted to look at it, and I don't want to research it. So my husband's done the research, so he's telling you what he's learned about it. But from my perspective, if you really want to learn about slavery and what happened, there are tons of books out there. There are tons of movies you can watch. It is not a game. It's nothing to be trivialized in a game. To me, games are for fun and for entertainment. And if you get something educational out of it, that's great. And you will get something educational out of it. But for that particular thing, I wouldn't play with the Holocaust.
Right.
I wouldn't play with Japanese internment camps. And I think to me, it's very insulting. And I think it's demeaning for anyone to think that playing with slavery is a game. And if you want to buy it, more power to you. But I just will not support someone who thought slavery was a game. So that's my thing on it.
And there's another game out there that has great mechanics called Mombasa. But it's about how colonial Africa is basically raped of its resources. That's a game that will not be in our collection also, because we just can't, it's just something we don't deal with. Now, I know there's a lot of African American gamers that do have Mombasa because they like the gameplay or whatever. And that's on them. That's great. You can have that. But we see a lot of times we see past the game and we see the theme and we really look at the theme. And that one, no, we pass on that.
I just feel like you vote on whether a game is great with your dollars. If you buy it, then the designer felt like I did something great. If you don't buy it, they feel like I didn't do something great. I just think that voting with your dollars on something like Freedom is the wrong way to utilize your money when there are thousands, and I mean thousands of games out there that will give you the exact same mechanics and probably a lot more enjoyment. I know for me it'll be more enjoyment than Freedom. Vote with your dollars. And I know whoever is watching this, if you wrote Freedom or you designed Freedom, you're probably not going to want to hear this, but I'm telling you right now, I'm insulted that you decided to make slavery a game.
Yeah. Well, that's absolutely a valid perspective. On any of these games, I mean, I can think of there are several games that are about the Holocaust or about the Nazi era or about Native Americans.
Yeah.
That some of the war games, of the war games have some themes, I think, for Native Americans, especially American history, that are very difficult to manage.
And I don't think we should play with any of those, And even with the one I mentioned, one of my favorite, 5 Tribes. And I've had some issues with reconciling the use of slaves, even I'm doing air quotes, no one can see that, the use of slaves in this game. And they're not African-American slaves. They are slaves from
the Middle East.
The Middle East. So I have trouble with that.
But there's a replacement debt.
The fakirs.
Yeah, the fakirs.
So we have that.
Yeah.
But I just think that was wrong. So I'm happy that they decided to, hey, we're going to change that out for the replacement debt.
And I think sometimes, some of the European designers don't really think about that. And they need to really think about the representation and really, talk to people like, is this okay putting in the game
or not? Right.
There's another game that we love and basically start us on our path to the more harder games, and that's Lewis and Clark. In Lewis and Clark, we kind of stopped playing that a little bit. We still love the game; it's still a good game, but the French company said, we have the word Indian in it, and that's fine. They explain why they have Indian in there, and that's great, and they have a lot of history in there. But all the Indians' meeples are all red. You have the Indians that are red.
And they're being utilized,
and they're utilized
like
money. You're trading off on those
things. And we haven't played Lewis and Clark in a while.
Yeah.
And when we got it, you start to really think about what did we actually buy. It's an insult. And I don't want to insult. It's just it's just too many other games to play. You don't have to play something where I got to feel divided when I'm playing it. I don't have to feel divided. I want to be happy. I want to enjoy it. And there are thousands of games I can play that I just enjoy without even thinking.
Yeah. So that takes us back to the discussion we had a little earlier about theme being so important. And representation in theme is not just about having folks in there that are not white. It's about how are those persons represented in the game thematically. Yeah. That's definitely, and as you play educationally, to be aware of that in the communities in which you're playing. Yes. Absolutely. Well, thank you for that, because that's not something that I had thought all the way through to the end. So thank you for teaching me today. Well, thank you so much, Mick and Starla, for being here. This has been just a wonderful time. And thank you for being on our inaugural podcast. The very first one. Yeah, and we're calling it Gaming with a Purpose.
Gaming with a Purpose.
Gaming with a Purpose. Because, again, our goal is to get out there and introduce a new audience, but also help them learn a little something along the way.
Yes.
So thank you.
And we were glad to be here.
We've enjoyed it.
Yeah, we did.